Hello dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. D.C. Saxena, Professor and Head of the Department of Food Engineering and Technology at Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology, Longowal. I am here to present the paper Technology of Spices and Condiments and the module entitled as World Trade in Spices, its present status, which will be told to you and explained by my co-author Mr. Narendra Kumar Chandla.
Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Narendra Kumar Chandla from Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today I am going to talk about Module 4 of paper number 10, Technology of Spices and Condiments. In this module, we will be discussing the spices and condiments scenario throughout the world. In this module, also, we will let you know the statistics of the spices and especially oleoresins, which are high in processed industries and in hotels and restaurants for the preparations of the variety of the foods. The spice trade began in the Middle East over 4,000 years ago. In the 15th century, the spice trade that was transformed by the European age of discovery. By this time, navigational equipment was better and long haul selling became possible. Spices were once very tightly guarded and generated immense wealth to those who controlled their trade. Rich entrepreneurs began outfitting explorers in the hopes of circumventing Venice by discovering new ways to reach the areas where spices were grown. In developed countries, the usage of pepper in the food industry has increased because of its taste, flavor, seasoning characteristics, and so on. More than 60% of the pepper is consumed in industries and food sectors, and the balance is used for the domestic consumption, medicines, perfumes, health, and beauty segments. In this module, we will come to know spices statistics, trade of the essential oils, world trade spices scenario, spice trade forecasting, etc. Spices. Spices and condiments are defined as vegetable products or mixtures free from extraneous matter, used for flavoring, seasoning, or imparting aroma in the foods. Herbs are a subset of the spices, generally derived from fresh or dried leaves. But in this guide, no distinction is made between spices and herbs. In keeping with the international standards of organization, spices may be derived from many parts of the plant, like bark, birds, flowers, fruits, leaves, rhizomes, roots, seeds, stigmas, and styles, or they may be the entire plant tops. The term herb is used as subset of the spice and refers to the plants with aromatic leaves. The trade in the processed and valued spice ingredient is, however, growing rapidly as importers look for the cheaper global sourcing of spice products and their exporting business, which develop the appropriate technologies and quality systems. History. The spice trade began in the Middle East over 4,000 years ago. In the 15th century, the spice trade was transformed by the European age of discovery. By this time, navigational equipment was better and long-haul sailing became possible. Spices were once very tightly guarded and generated immense wealth for those who controlled their trade. Rich entrepreneurs began outfitting explorers in hopes of circumventing Venice by discovering new ways to reach the areas where spices were grown. The spice trade refers to the trade between historic civilization in Asia, North Africa, and in Europe. Voyages of the Exploration. Major voyages of the exploration in the search of the spices was for pepper and clove, which is due to the high demand in Europe, very valuable commodity. Therefore, find and control source the trade of the spices. Columbus' voyage was to find a better route to the Asia. Another, Vasco da Gama circumnavigation of America to Malabar coast of India in 1498 was the major reason. Portugal sent him at the time the cost of the Malabar produced 2/3 of the pepper supply. At the time, the price of the pepper was set at 11.5 grams of the gold per quintal. History. In developed countries, the usage of the pepper in the food industry has increased substantially because of its taste, flavor, and seasoning characteristics. More than 60% of the pepper is consumed in industrial and food service sectors, and the balance is used for domestic consumption, medicinal purposes, perfumes, health, and beauty segments. The United States began its entry into the world spice industry in 18th century, when American businessmen began their own spice companies and started dealing directly with the Asian growers rather than the established European companies. When people started getting rich, more and more companies formed, and soon there were hundreds of American ships making around the world voyages for the spices. Americans made new contributions to the spice world, notably the creation of chili powder by Texas settlers as an easier way to make Mexican dishes, and the development of the techniques for dehydrating onions and garlic. Introduction. Spices exports have registered substantial growth during the last 5 years, registering an annual average growth rate of 21% in value and 8% in the quantity. And India commands a formidable position in world spice trade. The current annual global trade in the spices is 6 to 7 lakh tons, which valued at 3 to 3.5 billion US dollar. The value of the spice trade is particularly dependent on pepper prices, as pepper remains the main spice in the international trade. The global spice trade is expected to increase with growing consumer demand in importing countries for more exotic ethnic taste in the food. In the United Kingdom, for example, spice imports have increased by 27% in the last 5 years, mainly through the growth in the spices like cinnamon, cloves, garlic, and seed spices. About 85% of the spices are traded internationally in whole form, with importing countries processing and packing the final product as a whole or grinded spices for the food industry and substantially for the retail market. Pepper and cinnamon are no longer luxurious for most of us, and spices have lost the status and the allure that once placed them alongside jewels and precious metals as the world's most valuable item. World spices trade is mainly concentrated on black pepper because it is the largest traded spice in the international market, both in terms of quantity and in terms of the value. Due to this, black pepper is called the king of all the spices. The significance of the cardamom in the international, as noted elsewhere, called it queen of the spices. Pepper rules the spice trade both in terms of volume and value. International Trade Center, called as ITC, has estimated that pepper contributes 34% of the total of the spice trade by volume, followed by chili at 22%, seed spices 17%, tree spices 14%, turmeric 5%, ginger 4%, and cardamom 3% of the total spices. Spice market world over is growing, and significant growth has been noticed in specific spice segments like hot spices in US, aromatic culinary herbs in France, etc. World trade spice percentage. The spice percentage across the world varies. Pepper, it contributes 33%, capsicum 22%, seed spices 15%, tree spices 14%, turmeric 8%, ginger 6%, cardamom 4%, vanilla 2%. So this is the overall spice percentage of the spices across the world. Indian spice scenario. Indian spices exports have been able to record strident gains in both volume and value. Spices exports have registered substantial growth during the last 5 years, registered an compound annual average growth rate of 21% in value and 12% in volume. During 2013-14, a total of 8,17,250 tons of spices and spice products, which valued rupees 13,735.39 crore or 2,267.67 million US dollars have been exported from the country, as against of 7,26,613 tons, which valued rupees 12,112.76 crores. In 2012 to 2013, registering an increase of 12% in volume and 13% in rupee term and 3% in dollars in term of the value. Indian spice scenario. The total export of the spices during 2013 to 2014 has exceeded the target in terms of both quantity and value, as compared to the target of 6,24,700 tons, which values across rupees 10,394 crore for the financial year of 2013 and 14. The achievement is 131% in terms of quantity and 132% in rupees, while 124% in terms of the dollar value. Introduction. The trade distribution structure in the spice and herb can be divided into lines of supply to the three broad market sectors. The three broad market sectors are industrial, catering, and the retail sector, as shown in the figure. It is estimated that about 85% of the international trade of herbs and spices is dried and cleaned for use in a crude form without further processing. Rich entrepreneurs begin outfitting explorers in the hopes of circumventing the discovering of the new ways to reach the areas where spices were grown. World spices trade is mainly concentrated on black pepper because it is the largest traded spice in the international market, both in terms of the quantity and quality. Spices statistical. As far as the statistics is concerned, spices export have registered a substantial growth, registering an annual average growth rate of 21% and 8% in terms of value and quantity. World trade in spices have an annual global trade in the spices ranges from 6 to 7 lakh tons. The value of the spice trade is particularly dependent upon peppers. Spices statistical. The global spice trade is expected to increase with the growing consumer demand in importing countries for more exotic foods and to have different processed foods with the different tastes. In the UK, for example, spice imports have increased by 27%, which is mainly through the growth in the spices, especially in the cinnamon, cloves, and garlic. About 85% of the spices are traded internationally in the whole form, and rest of the spices are grounded through mills to have processed foods. Spices statistical. In this spices statistical, major pepper producers of the world are India and US. The major pepper producing countries except these are China, Mexico, Turkey, Indonesia, Spain, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and Belize. In the table, we can conclude that China is the leading in the production of the pepper. In the 2010, the total production of the China was 40 lakhs 26,000 272. Mexico was 18,19,430. Turkey was 17,59,220 tons, and the trend has been increased to 2011 and 2012 onwards. This indicates that the requirements and the production of the pepper per metric tons have been increased and is increasing day by day. Spices statistical, as pepper is the major spice and is the spice for the export concern. The major exporting countries are Netherlands, Spain, Canada, United States of America, France, etc. Netherlands is the leading in the export of the pepper. As you see, the statistical trend from 2010 to 2012 with maximum export of 53 crores 49 lakhs 89,288 kg of pepper, while France is behind to all exporting countries as shown in the table. Spice statistical, as major pepper importer countries in the world we have discussed, among all the major importing countries are United States of America, Germany, United Kingdom and Spain. They all having their share in exporting the pepper. In all these, United States is leading in requirements of the spices, while Spain is leading behind the all importing countries in the pepper trade. Spices statistical. The trade by volume and value have also been discussed in this table. In this, we can conclude that highest quantity imported by United States in terms of the quantity and value and in terms of the money. Trade of essential oil. The trades, quantities and the values of the essential oil provide a perspective of the international trade. It is also to be noted that extracts and oleoresins of the spices, which are becoming much more common and extracted in the countries of the production. As far as the trade of the essential oil is concerned, it is a concentrated form of the flavors, especially the volatile flavors which are utilized for the production of the variety of the products, especially in food products and in the pharmaceuticals as an encapsulating agent. So, the application or the governing factor for the trade of the essential oils. World trade scenario. The US is the biggest importer of the spice products, which is followed by Germany and Japan. The European Union has the largest importers of the spices in the value term, worth 2.2 billion US dollar. The total consumption of the spices in 1993 was 16,545 tons, of which more than 50% was the black pepper. The main market is the retail sector with over 100 million consumer packs of the spices. The catering market in 1993 was worth $20 to 25 million. Spice trade forecasting. As far as the forecasting of the spices is concerned, spices export have registered substantial growth. The current annual global trade in the spices is 6 to 7 lakh tons, which valued at 3 to 3.5 billion dollars. The value of the spice trade is particularly dependent upon the pepper prices and the products of the pepper which is to be sold in the international market. The global spice trade is expected to increase with the growing consumer demand in importing countries for the preparation of the number of the products. The products which could be prepared by the application of the spices are some exotic dishes, ethnic taste development in the food products. In the United Kingdom's spice exports has increased by 27% in the last 5 years. Almost 85% spices are traded globally as a whole spice, and the rest of the spices which could have their way for the processing of the other valuable processed foods. So spices having their trade in a better fashion in comparison to that of the other commodities which are specific to the national and international trade. As far as the oleoresins is concerned and the essential oils are concerned, they are the concentrated form and they can have their way for the preparation of the dishes at an instance and could have less effect on the overall composition of the food products. Spice trade forecasting. The total estimated export of the spices from the country during 2012-2013 has crossed from 2000 million US dollar. During this period, a total of 5,75,270 tons of the spices and the spice products valued rupees 9,783.42 crores has been exported as against of 5,25,750 tons, which valued across rupees 7,840.70 crore in 2001 to 2012, registering an increase of 9% in the quantity and 43% in the rupee term value. Spices trade forecasting. Compared to the target fixed, 5 lakh tons valued rupees 6,500 crore for the financial year 2011 and 2012. It is further predicted that global demand of the black pepper escalating to about 2,80,000 metric tons by the year 2020. That will further climb to 3,60,000 metric tons by the year 2050. Summary: the US is the biggest importer of the spice products. World spices trade is mainly concentrated on black pepper because it is the largest traded spice in the international market, both in terms of quantity and in terms of value. The value of the spice trade is particularly dependent on pepper prices, as pepper remains the main spice in the international trade. The current annual global trade in the spices is 6 to 7 lakh tons, which valued across 3 to 3.5 billion US dollar. The trade distribution structure in the spice and herb trade serve namely industrial sector, catering sector and the retail sector. It is also to be noted that extracts and oleoresins of the spices, which are becoming much more common and extracted in the countries of the production, also helping in boosting the trade due to their vast application in processed foods. It is predicted that global demand of the black pepper escalating to about 2,80,000 metric tons by the year 2020, that will further climb to 3,60,000 metric tons by the year 2050. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. In this module, we have discussed the spices and condiment scenario throughout the world, statistics of the spices, especially the oleoresins, which are the concentrated source of the spices and which are in the high demand in ready-to-eat processing food industries, and they are having their utilization and requirements in hotels and restaurants. In developed countries, the uses of oleoresins and essential oil in food industry has increased substantially because of the better taste, flavor, and prompt access to enhance the seasoning characteristics of many culinary products. More than 60% of pepper is consumed in industrial and food service sectors, and the rest is used for domestic consumption, medicinal purposes, perfumery purposes, health and beauty segments. World spice trade is mainly concentrated on black pepper and cardamom. The value of the spice trade is particularly dependent upon pepper prices, as pepper remains the main spice in the international trade. As we know, the rate of all the spices have been balanced by the rate which have been proposed by international trade centers in terms of the pepper prices. Nowadays, extracts and oleoresins of spices, which are becoming much more common, are the driving wheel of the spice industry. Oleoresins of the spices are extensively utilized in many countries for boosting the trade due to their vast applications in processed foods that are about the spices and condiment scenario throughout the world. So here we have talked about how the pepper industry, how the pepper in terms of the quantity and quality affects the overall international trade of the spices. Thank you.
Since the present status of spices has been explained to you by my co-author with respect to the world trade of spices, now comes the next module wherein you will be explained the nomenclature as well as classification of spices. Thank you.